everyone, it's Paige. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is technically a monthly wrap-up for the month of January, but it's going to be a little bit different because all of the books that I read in January were because of TikTok or Booktok. Recently, well, not recently, it's probably been like for the past like half year, but I've gotten like really into TikTok. I don't post anything yet, even though I kind of want to post a few book talks, like to condense sort of like my recommendation videos here on YouTube into a book talk sort of thing, but I don't post anything, but I'm on there practically every single day. There are just so many circulating book recommendations on Booktok, and like the people that recommend these books are like so convincing. Like they make one short video, and by the end of that like tiny 30-second video you are utterly convinced that whatever book they recommended is going to be like your absolute favorite of all time. So I read 9 books in January, which is pretty above my average of like 4 to 5, and it all started because I had just heard way too much about From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout, and I was so curious. I could no longer resist the temptation, so I finally picked it up, and after I was done with that I was like, you know what, might as well go on a TikTok binge. So we're just gonna jump right into it. Before I do, I just wanted to point out that I've got these Hanafuda earrings that Tanjiro wears in Demon Slayer. I don't know, I'm just very excited. I know some of you watch anime, and I don't even wear earrings that often, but I was like, I have to have them, so Troy got them for me. Anyway, I know you guys are probably like, shut up, let's get into the books. So let's get into the books. Like I said, the first book that I read in January was on the 12th, and it was From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This was actually the first series book that I've ever read of hers, even though she's been around for a long time. This is like a new adult fantasy series that follows this girl named Poppy, who is kind of chosen as this like religious icon. So she's referred to as the Maiden. So that kind of means she's like kept in solitude. People aren't allowed to look upon her face or like touch her or like do anything. Like she's not allowed to do anything impure. So Poppy is awaiting this sort of ascension that's supposed to happen where, I don't know, she's supposed to become closer to the gods and take her place as like the real maiden, I guess. But Poppy is, you know, a regular person. She also has her own desires and wishes for herself, and so she is also a talented like fighter, I guess. And essentially this guard named Hawk shows up, and she begins to question all of her desires and choices and her future, and yeah, it's very strongly romantic. It's very strongly romantic. It doesn't surprise me that this is on Booktok, because I've noticed that most of the like recommendations on Booktok are romanticities, a mixture of like fantasy and romance is really big on TikTok. This book and the sequel, which I also read immediately after that book, which is called A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, would be absolutely perfect for anybody who likes Sarah J Maas but also wants like more steam than Sarah J Maas, which I'm surprised to be saying, because literally like ACOTAR was supposed to be young adult, and then she put in so many smut scenes that it became new adult. Like literally they changed the covers, and now if you look for it, it's in fantasy rather than like young adult in Barnes & Noble. But surprisingly, shockingly, this series definitely exceeds the steam level of ACOTAR, Throne of Glass. Can I say that because of that I like it better than ACOTAR? No, I mean, I think Rhys and Feyre as a couple are like just, there's no surpassing them as far as this type of genre goes, but I definitely saw some very strong parallels between Rhys and Feyre and Poppy and Hawk. I don't know, I really don't know what to say about this book. Like I said, it's steamy, so like if that's what you're looking for, which sometimes like you are looking for that, then you should read it, absolutely. I highly recommend it if that's like what you want. As far as the plot that underlies the romance, it's definitely not like the worst plot I've ever seen. Like I've definitely seen romanticities that have no underlying plot in relation to the romance, but this one I feel like does have a pretty okay plot. Like I am pretty interested in it. Anyway, my thoughts, I definitely enjoyed it a lot, and I recommended it to all of my friends who liked ACOTAR, and definitely my friends that liked ACOTAR and used to love Twilight. And by the way, Jennifer L. Armentrout is on TikTok, so she posts sneak peeks of her writing. In case you already have read this series, go ahead and check her out on TikTok because it drives me insane, but I'm also really happy that she does that. Okay, so after I read those 2 books, I went ahead and read Radiance by Grace Draven. This is the first book in a series called Wraith Kings. This is another like fantasy romance, except this one I think is more so high fantasy and definitely more adult than new adult. This is about these 2 people, Brishan, who is basically like a drow, who is a prince of a drow kingdom, but he's not the heir to the throne. So he is betrothed to this human woman from another kingdom. I think she is also a princess, and basically their marriage is supposed to just form an alliance between these 2 kingdoms, who I think have just really recently become allies because of outlying threats against both their kingdoms. Also, I will correct myself, the woman, she is not a princess, she's a noblewoman. The problem with this marriage is that they, being 2 entirely kind of different races, they are like scared of each other. She is scared of Brishan because, you know, he has the smoky skin, he looks kind of like, he has claws, his eyes are like one solid color. Basically, if you've seen a drow before, if you've seen a dark elf before, that's what he looks like. And he's scared of her because it's actually really funny. Like, if you think about it, if I was a drow and I looked at a human and I just saw like these like pupils and everything, it wasn't like a full opaque sort of eye, then I would probably be a little bit freaked out. So like one of the returning jokes in this book is the fact that Yuriko can like cross her eyes and it freaks Brishan out. It's really not like a hate to lovers sort of story, even though that their marriage was kind of like surprising to both of them. It's definitely like a friends to lovers sort of romance. It's surprisingly sweet, like very sweet actually. The only reason I decided not to continue on is because I was happy with the conclusion of the first book and I didn't really feel a huge urge to continue on, so I just decided not to. I don't think I would call it memorable. The only thing that I definitely will remember is this like funny joke, like I said, that is between the 2 of them about like humans versus drow, and like it was just like it was a good friendship that they built that I will probably remember. So anyway, after I was done with that book, I went ahead and read another book that is extremely popular on TikTok. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but I have definitely seen it multiple times at this point. So I read The Bridge Kingdom by Danielle L. Jenson. Again, another fantasy romance. This one definitely more new adult. So again, we have, unsurprisingly, we have a trend here, TikTok. This is another like arranged marriage sort of deal. I actually really do enjoy the synopsis of this one, and basically it is about a girl named Lara who is a princess, and she is raised in isolation with her other sisters, and they are brought up to be these very lethal spies because Lara's kingdom and her king agreed to a sort of alliance slash deal with this other kingdom called the Bridge Kingdom, and that alliance is supposed to be formed with the marriage of a princess of Lara's kingdom and the king of the Bridge Kingdom. But Lara's kingdom hates the Bridge Kingdom, and Lara's father, the king, blames the Bridge Kingdom for all of their woes because the Bridge Kingdom, fittingly, has this huge, like, almost like extraterrestrial sort of like bridge that like is used for a lot of trade, and Lara is brought up to hate the Bridge Kingdom and its king for supposedly like keeping trade away from her kingdom and starving her people. After training for years and years, Lara is the one that comes out on top, and she goes off to the Bridge Kingdom to marry its king, with the plan that she will assassinate him eventually and take his kingdom from him. Okay, so things I liked. I liked Lara generally. I thought she was very capable, especially in the second book, which I'm kind of tying into this mini wrap-up of the series, which is the Traitor Queen. Lara is just like very cool, especially like the action in the Traitor Queen is really great. I did not expect that, considering this is another romantic fantasy, but the action in the second book is fantastic. So I love Lara. Of course, this story inherently is very frustrating, so there were times that I hated Lara, but Overall, I did enjoy her. I guess I did enjoy the romance. There's surprisingly not a ton of it, so don't go into this thinking that it's going to be like Steam Central, which is what From Blood and Ashes. That is not what this book really is, even though it is sort of romantically focused at times. The only thing is that the general like politics and like world building of this story, I didn't feel very connected to the world, so I was clinging on to just like the characters and their development and their relationships. I decided not to continue on with this series because after these two books, another couple, another character, whatever, takes the focus away, and I just wasn't interested enough in the other politics and kingdoms and stuff that were going on in order to find the motivation to continue with the series. And I don't really know if I have anything else to say about this book. I think it's definitely worth reading if you like that sort of trope of enemies to lovers, or I'm trying to kill you. You know, if you like that sort of trope, which I typically do, and that's why I read these two books, I think you would enjoy this. It's just maybe not, it's not the best example of the trope I think I've ever read. Okay, so we're on book 6 at this point, if you kind of got lost in the chaos of this wrap up already, because I wrapped up like 2 books at once, and then 1 book, and then 2 books at once, so sorry. After that, I read 2 very unexpected books. They are also fantasy romances. So that first book that I'm talking about is Dark Lover, which is the first book in the Black Dagger Brotherhood by J.R. Ward. Not only did I see this on TikTok, but I also have seen this just so many times, just like throughout my life. Definitely when I was reading Anita Blake Vampire Hunter, I saw suggestions on this series, so I finally went ahead and read the first book. Can't really remember how many perspectives there were, but definitely 2 main ones. And one of them is Wrath, who is this like the last pure-blooded vampire in the world, and he's the leader of the Black Dagger Brotherhood, etc., etc. And the other perspective is this girl named Beth, who is the daughter of one of Wrath's like soldiers, like very high-ranking soldiers, or brothers, because they're in a brotherhood. But right before Beth's dad dies, he pleads with Wrath to go and like help his daughter, who is going to be going through probably the like vampire transition soon, because this is a vampire story. So he like begs Wrath, he's like,
please, you're the last pure-blooded vampire, you can help her get through her transition without dying.
And when he dies, Wrath is like,
well, I feel obligated to help her now.
And what do you know, there's romance right there immediately. Just romance. This is a romance book, of course there's gonna be romance, so there is a lot. Quite a bit of steam, I guess. I did enjoy it. It's a pretty short read. I felt very cheesy sometimes, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I can tolerate pretty high amount of cheese, but I think when they started trying to focus on another potential romance in this book, I was kind of like, because it just got really, really cheesy, and it felt very like insta-lovey. But anyway, even though there are a ton of books in this series, like a ton, I've decided probably I won't continue on, just because I don't really know if I would enjoy the other romances. I definitely really liked, I think his name is Zadist. Like Sadist, I think that was him, but I did really like him. But even though every book in the series I think follows a different romance in the Brotherhood, I don't think his is until later in the series, and I just don't know if I was interested in all the other ones that precede his. After that book, I read a very similarly regarded book called Darkfever, which is the first book in the Fever series by Karen Marie Moning, which I still can't get over like the irony of her last name. I don't know. This is definitely another fantasy romance, but like Dark Lover, this is like another urban one as opposed to like high fantasy romance. So this follows a girl named Michaela, Mac for short. She's a southern gal, and one day she gets a phone call and she is told that her sister was killed. And her sister was in Ireland because she had been going to school there. Mac sort of loses her mind, and the police aren't finding the culprit of her sister's death, and she feels like they aren't really trying as hard as she would like them to. And honestly, the nature of her sister's murder was so gruesome that Mac decides that she's gonna go to Ireland and she's gonna find out what the heck happened to her sister. She ends up in Ireland with only like this cryptic voicemail that her sister gave her. She meets this man named Jericho who starts to help her and train her in these new and mysterious fae ways. It's shockingly not very steamy. There's definitely a lot of buildup in this book. Mac as a protagonist is not ideal. She's very feminine, very girly, very like sassy, I guess. And I didn't hate her, but I can't say that I liked her either. She was maddeningly like naive. At every corner I was just like, Mac, please just start believing in what you're seeing, because if you don't, you're gonna die. And I also can't take the fact that you're just straight up denying the existence of things that you've literally seen. So she was very irritating at some points, but I can say that she definitely developed throughout the book, which sometimes doesn't happen with protagonists like this. Like, they always stay the same. They're always like naive and dumb, you know, but she does develop, she does learn. I don't know if I really liked what I assume is the main romance in the book. I did feel a little bit of chemistry between the two of them, but I just didn't like that chemistry enough to continue on with the series. Or at least that's where I stand right now. I am sort of curious about like the outcome of what the heck happened with her sister and stuff, so I guess I can say that I did like the underlying plot quite a bit, actually. I didn't hate it. Alright, we have two more, and the last one, even though you probably saw it in the picture, the thumbnail, might shock you still because I can't believe I even read it, but that's not the next one. The next one I'm going to talk about is The Shadows Between Us by Tricia Levenseller. This is definitely more of a young adult fantasy romance, and it has a very, very similar plot to The Bridge Kingdom in that it is about a girl named Alessandra who is sort of a noble girl, and she has like big aspirations. So she decides that she wants to woo the Shadow King, who is obviously the king of her kingdom, but he has these like shadow powers. He's like Azrael from A Court of Thorns and Roses, and that he can like move shadows around and stuff like that. So her desire is to marry him and then kill him and take his kingdom for herself. So very similar to the Bridge Kingdom. The only difference is that Lara from the Bridge Kingdom wanted to kill the king and take the kingdom because she felt that he was oppressing her people, whereas Alessandra in this book only wants to take the kingdom because she wants to become powerful. So you definitely have that trope of I meant to kill you, are we falling in love? And this is a standalone, which I do appreciate. Considering the very high focus on romance in this book, there isn't really a lot of steam and only kind of a bare amount of chemistry, I would say. The only thing that I kind of actually liked about this book was Alessandra is not a good person. Like, she literally is such a hypocrite, and weirdly enough, even though she was sort of frustratingly like selfish, I kind of like that, because like I don't read a lot of protagonists that are like that. I read a lot of duty-bound, like fiery protagonists, and she just wasn't really that. For that reason, she was very interesting, and I guess also for that reason, the fact that she's just not a great person made her sort of like a really good match for the king. But anyway, that's really all I have to say about that book. Okay. I'm actually nervous to talk about this book. I don't want anybody to judge me, but I mean, I did it. I read it. So, this book that I'm about to talk about has almost the same amount of fame on Booktok as From Blood and Ash. So I saw this book pop up alongside things like From Blood and Ash, which made me think, and I'm being utterly serious here, I wouldn't lie about this, I thought that this book was a fantasy romance and that it was connected to these Violent Delights, because if you look at the covers, they are very, very similar, and it looks, the cover of this book looks like a fantasy book cover. So when I saw this pop up in recommendations or just like wrap up book talks, I was like, okay, you know, supposedly it had good romance, so I bought it on Kindle, and I had never read the synopsis or anything about the book. So I pick it up expecting like a fantasy romance, and this is not a fantasy romance. This is a reverse harem, contemporary, like mafia romance. This is also a dark romance, if you get my meaning. I don't know whether oh my god. I wish I looked at the Goodreads before I read it, because it literally says this is a dark book. Like, there's a warning It's so weird. Oh god, okay. It's sort of about this girl named Roxy, I guess, who owns a bar. She's estranged from her father, who abused her growing up, but he cuts this deal with these, basically like this mafia group called the Vipers, who are made out of like 4 guys, basically, like almost like a brotherhood. So he makes this deal with them that I guess if they like don't kill him, he'll give them his daughter Roxy. So they accept the deal, and they're like, okay, we're gonna go take Roxy. So they take Roxy, and she's definitely like a fighter, like she's definitely like bad A, like, and she's sort of used to like the violent life because she's ran this bar for a long time, and she's been around like other gangs and things. I mean, is there really anything else I need to like summarize about this book? I mean, obviously, you know, I highly recommend that you don't read this if you are squeamish about gore or sexual assault or anything like that. I can't really say why I finished it, because I think I was just curious. Like it surpassed anything I'd ever read before, and you know, how far is this gonna go? And it went far. It went far. So yeah, I really wouldn't recommend this to you. I wouldn't think I would recommend this to anyone. Definitely not if you're under 18. Do I regret reading it? No, because that would imply that it had like a bigger impact on me than it did. And am I like happy I read this? Also no, because even though it was totally bizarre and very weird, I probably won't remember it in a few years from now. The only reason that I am kind of happy that I read it is because it's so amusing to me that TikTok made me read this book. Like TikTok, the app that's supposed to be for like 14-year-olds, suggested this book to me multiple times. And I also am sort of glad I read it because Pierre Ford, who is one of my favorite booktubers, also read this book, but like me, literally exactly like me, I think maybe she's on TikTok too, because how else could you mix these up, but she also made the same mistake. She thought that this book was a fantasy romance, and she thought that it was connected to these violent delights, which is the same thing I thought. Boy, were we both surprised. This is my warning to you if you have also seen this recommended to you on TikTok alongside other fantasy romances, that this book is not that, and it is pretty disturbing if you can take it seriously enough for it to be disturbing. You know what I mean? Like, it was so cheesy, it was so crazy that it went in one ear and went out the other. Like, that's how it was for me. Den of Vipers by V.A. Knight. Yeah, after I read that book, I was like, I think I'm done with romance for a while in any format. I think I'm done. So anyway, that is the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like, comment, and subscribe. Below, let me know what you read. Have you read anything because of TikTok? And if you have, was it good, or was it like a Den of Vipers sort of situation? I hope you are having a great week, and I will see you back here very, very soon. Bye!